let it play, boy.
Now, when I talk about economical system, right, understanding people doing business. Who remembers when I was talking about the triangular slave trade? And remembering how the system works, and the first company that I always keep on emphasizing, the Virginia company, there had to be someone that was controlling the business for the Queen, because the Queen's not going to come out and do her business. Now, in forms of understanding the triangular trade is that they needed to buy or collect slaves. Now, for them to be able to collect the slaves, they had to do forms of trading. Now, understanding the trade system, what can we trade for people and resources like gold? I've gone? Yeah, probably, yeah, you could say that. Understanding that, like today, what do we like to do? We like to buy new technology. We like to have new phones. We like to have new TVs, new beds, new pots, new pans. Now, Nicholas Crispy, as his name is, was the most wealthiest person within this region. He used to have big manufacturing companies just on the riverside, on the other side. They built buildings over it. But understanding, when we are always even putting glass waste beads around yourself, as in women, understanding where it came from. It came from Hammersmith. Because these are the kind of new technologies. They will see something, they will upgrade it, repackage it, and give it back to you. So now when you're seeing in them days, seeing something bright, new, something looking beautiful, I'll trade anything for that. I'll even give you 10 ounces of gold for that bracelet. But remember, this is what these guys did, and they become very wealthy to where they are today. He built this whole Hammersmith and Fulham from top to bottom through our sweat.
So he was a slave dealer?
He was more than that. He was a lord. He was a trader. He was a businessman. So this is why I keep on saying is, let's take away the emotions of what's happening with slavery, but understanding what he did. Because what I said earlier before is that most of what these guys did is that they saw every one of us as a form of commodity. So how am I going to do forms of trading? So I'm going to trade to get you, and what do I do with you? I put you on an island where you could do my farming for me, regardless of what things you go through. Because most of the violent places is where most of the European criminals went.
Tamaray Soiree and Luster Hair Products proudly presents A Night with a Difference.
By taking it back to the first Black Egyptian dynasty, celebrating Black History Month like a pharaoh.
Enjoy feasting on a Caribbean buffet and fundraising for breast cancer.
Performances on the night will be Tanae Edwards, Super Arts Dance Academy, Soul Songstress, Hill Street Soul, and Egyptian Showcase by Terry Jervis.
Music on the night by Satisfaction Sound and DJ Piper.
At the Holiday Inn Bloomsbury, Coram Street, London WC1 NHT on Saturday the 19th of October from 6:30 till 2 a.m.
Early bird tickets £60 from Eventbrite. Here and Now Salon in Shepherd's Bush and Tamaray Event Designers on 07507 218 053.
Dress code black tie and Egyptian themed.
History of Guinea. Published December the 9th, 2017. Special characters are denoted as follows. And. Left and right parentheses. An M dash. The modern state of Guinea did not come into existence until 1958, but the history of the area stretches back well before European colonization. Its current boundaries were determined during the colonial period by the Berlin Conference, 1884 to 1885, and the French, who ruled Guinea until 1958. Part 1. West African Empires. What is now Guinea was on the fringes of the major West African empires. The Ghana Empire is believed to be the earliest of these, which grew on trade but contracted and ultimately fell due to the hostile influence of the Almoravids. It was in this period that Islam first arrived in the region, the Soso Kingdom. 12th to 13th centuries. Briefly flourished in the void, but the Islamic Mandinka Mali Empire came to prominence when Soundiata Keita defeated the Soso ruler Siumang Rukant at the semi-historical Battle of Kirina in c. 1235. The Mali Empire was ruled by Mansa emperors, the most famous being Kanku Musa, who made a famous Hajj to Mecca in 1324. Shortly after his reign, the Mali Empire began to decline and was ultimately supplanted by its vassal states in the 15th century. The most successful of these was the Songhai Empire, expanding its power from about 1460 and eventually surpassing the Mali Empire in both territory and wealth. It continued to prosper until a civil war over succession followed the death of Askia Daud in 1582. The weakened empire fell to invaders from Morocco at the Battle of Tondibi just 3 years later. The Moroccans proved unable to rule the kingdom effectively, however, and it split into many small kingdoms. Part 2. Kingdoms in Guinea. After the fall of the major West African empires, various kingdoms existed in what is now Guinea. Part 2. Kingdoms in Guinea. Chapter 1. Fouta-Djallon. Fulani Muslims migrated to Fouta-Djallon in central Guinea and established an Islamic state from 1735 to 1898 with a written constitution and alternate rulers. Part 2. Kingdoms in Guinea. Chapter 2. Wael Empire. The Wael or Wassoulou Empire was a short-lived 1878 to 1898 empire led by Samori Toure in the predominantly Malinke area of what is now Upper Guinea and southwestern Mali. Wael. It moved to Ivory Coast before being conquered by the French. Part 3. Colonial era. The slave trade came to the coastal region of Guinea with European adventurers in the 16th century. Slavery had always been part of everyday life, but the scale increased as slaves were exported to work elsewhere in the triangular trade. Guinea's colonial period began with French military penetration into the area in the mid-19th century. French domination was assured by the defeat in 1898 of the armies of Samori Tour, Mansa, or Emperor of the Uaul state and leader of Malinke descent, which gave France control of what today is Guinea and adjacent areas. France negotiated Guinea's present boundaries in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with the British for Sierra Leone, the Portuguese for their Guinea colony, now Guinea-Bissau, and Liberia. Under the French, the country formed the territory of Guinea within French West Africa, administered by a governor-general resident in Dakar. Lieutenant governors administered the individual colonies, including Guinea. Part 4. Independence. 1958. In 1958, the French Fourth Republic collapsed due to political instability and its failures in dealing with its colonies, especially Indochina and Algeria. The founding of a Fifth Republic was supported by the French people, while French President Charles de Gaulle made it clear on the 8th of August 1958 that France's colonies were to be given a stark choice between more autonomy in a new French community and immediate independence in the referendum to be held on the 28th of September 1958. The other French colonies chose the former but Guinea, under the leadership of Ahmed Sékou Touré, Democratic Party of Guinea, PDG, had won 56 of 60 seats in 1957 territorial elections, voted overwhelmingly for independence. The French withdrew quickly, and on October 2, 1958, Guinea proclaimed itself a sovereign and independent republic, with Sékou Touré as president. Part 4, Independence Chapter 1, Sékou Touré's rule. 1958 to 1984. Following France's withdrawal, Guinea quickly aligned itself with the Soviet Union and adopted socialist policies. This alliance was short-lived, however, as Guinea moved towards a Chinese model of socialism. Despite this, however, the country continued to receive aid and investment from capitalist countries such as the US. Even the relationship with France improved. After the election of Valéry Giscard d'Estaing as president, trade increased and the two countries exchanged diplomatic visits. By 1960, Touré had declared the PDG the only legal party. For the next 24 years, the government and the PDG were one. Touré was re-elected unopposed for 7-year terms as president, and every 5 years voters were presented with a single list of PDG candidates for the National Assembly, advocating a hybrid African socialism domestically and Pan-Africanism abroad. Touré quickly became a polarizing leader, and his government became intolerant of dissent, imprisoning hundreds and stifling free press. At the same time, the Guinean government nationalized land, removed French-appointed and traditional chiefs from power, and broke ties with French government and companies, vacillating between support for the Soviet Union and, by the late 1970s, the United States. Guinea's economic situation became as unpredictable as its diplomatic line. Alleging plots and conspiracies against him at home and abroad, Touré's regime targeted real and imagined opponents, driving thousands of political opponents into exile. In 1970, Portuguese forces, from neighboring Portuguese Guinea, staged Operation Green Sea, a raid into Guinea with the support of exiled Guinean opposition forces. Among other goals, the Portuguese military wanted to kill or capture Sékou Touré due his support of the PAIGC, a guerrilla movement operating inside Portuguese Guinea. After several days of fierce fighting, the Portuguese forces retreated without achieving most of their goals. The regime of Sékou Touré increased the number of internal arrests and executions. Sékou Touré died on March 26, 1984 after a heart operation in the United States, and was replaced by Prime Minister Louis Lansana Vogui, who was to serve as interim president pending new elections. Part 4, Independence Chapter 2, Lansana Contes Rule, 1984 to 2008. The PDG was due to elect a new leader on April 3, 1984. Under the Constitution, that person would have been the only candidate for president. However, hours before that meeting, Colonels Lansana Conte and Diarra Traore seized power in a bloodless coup. Conte assumed the role of president, with Traore serving as prime minister until December. Conte immediately denounced the previous regime's record on human rights, released 250 political prisoners and encouraged approximately 200,000 more to return from exile. He also made explicit the turn away from socialism, but this did little to alleviate poverty and the country showed no immediate signs of moving towards democracy. In 1992, Conte announced a return to civilian rule, with a presidential poll in 1993 followed by elections to parliament in 1995, in which his party, the Party of Unity and Progress, won 71 of 114 seats. Despite his stated commitment to democracy, Conte's grip on power remained tight. In September 2001, the opposition leader Alpha Condé was imprisoned for endangering state security, though he was pardoned 8 months later. He subsequently spent a period of exile in France. In 2001, Conte organized and won a referendum to lengthen the presidential term, and in 2003 began his third term after elections were boycotted by the opposition. In January 2005, Conte survived a suspected assassination attempt while making a rare public appearance in the capital Conakry. His opponents claimed that he was a tired dictator whose departure was inevitable, whereas his supporters believed that he was winning a battle with dissidents. Guinea still faces very real problems and, according to foreign policy, is in danger of becoming a failed state. In 2000, Guinea became embroiled in the instability which had long blighted the rest of West Africa as rebels crossed the borders with Liberia and Sierra Leone, and it seemed for a time that the country was headed for civil war. Conte blamed neighboring leaders for coveting Guinea's natural resources, though these claims were strenuously denied. In 2003, Guinea agreed plans with her neighbors to tackle the insurgents. In 2007, there were big protests against the government, resulting in the appointment of a new prime minister. Part 4, Independence Chapter 3, Conte's death and the 2008 coup d'etat. In a coup d'etat several hours following Touré's death, Lansana Conte became the president. The constitution and parliament was suspended and a committee for national recovery was established. Conte remained in power until his death on the 22nd of December 2008. In several hours following his death, Moussa Dadis Camara seized control of Guinea as the head of a junta. On the 28th of September 2009, the junta ordered its soldiers to attack people who had gathered to protest Camara's presumed candidacy in the upcoming presidential elections. The soldiers went on a rampage of rape, mutilation, and murder. On the 3rd of December 2009, an aide shot Camara during a dispute about the rampage of September 2009. Camara went to Morocco for medical care. Vice President and Defense Minister Sékou Konaté flew back from Lebanon to run the country in Camara's absence. On the 12th of January 2010, Camara was flown from Morocco to Burkina Faso. After meeting in Ouagadougou on 13 and the 14th of January, Camara, Konaté and Blaise Compaoré, president of Burkina Faso, produced a formal statement of 12 principles promising a return of Guinea to civilian rule within 6 months. It was agreed that the military would not contest the forthcoming elections, and Camara would continue his convalescence outside Guinea. On the 21st of January 2010, the military junta appointed Jean Mouridor as prime minister of a 6-month transition government, leading up to elections. The presidential election was set to take place on the 27th of June and the 18th of July 2010. It was held as being the first free and fair election since independence in 1958. The first round took place normally on the 27th of June 2010, with ex-Prime Minister Cellou Dalein Diallo and his rival Alpha Condé emerging as the two runners-up for the second round. However, due to allegations of electoral fraud, the second round of the election was postponed until the 19th of September 2010. A delay until the 10th of October was announced by the Electoral Commission. CENI. Subject to approval by Sekouba Konate. Yet another delay until the 24th of October was announced in early October. Elections were finally held on the 7th of November. Vote turnout was high, and the elections went relatively smoothly. The 16th of November 2010, Alpha Condé, the leader of the opposition party Rally of the Guinean People, RGP, was officially declared the winner of the 7th of November runoff in Guinea's presidential election. He had promised to reform the security sector and review mining contracts if elected. On the night of the 18th of July 2011, President Condé's residence was attacked in an attempted coup. The attack included a fierce firefight and rocket-propelled grenades. The president was unharmed. 16 people have been charged with the attempted assassination. Most of those indicted are close associates of Konate. The National Assembly of Guinea, the country's legislative body, has not met since 2008, when it was dissolved after the military coup in December. Elections have been postponed many times since 2007 and, most recently, were scheduled for the 8th of July 2012. In April 2012, President Condé postponed the elections indefinitely, citing the need to ensure that they were transparent and democratic. In February 2013, a plane carrying the head of the Guinean Armed Forces, General Khalifa Diallo, and 9 other military officials, crashed on its way to the Liberian capital, Monrovia. Chapter 3: Conté's Death and the 2008 Coup d'etat. Section 1: 2013 Protests. The opposition coalition withdrew from the electoral process in mid-February, mainly due to President Condé's insistence on using a suspicious South African firm Waymark Infotech to draw up the registered vote list. In late February 2013, political violence erupted in Guinea after protesters took to the streets to voice their concerns over the transparency of the upcoming May 2013 elections. The demonstrations were fueled by the opposition coalition's decision to step down from the electoral process in protest at the lack of transparency in the preparations for elections. 9 people were killed during the protests, while around 220 were injured, and many of the deaths and injuries were caused by security forces using live fire on protesters. The political violence also led to inter-ethnic clashes between the Fula and Malink peoples, the latter forming the base of support for President Condé, with the former consisting mainly of the opposition. On the 26th of March 2013, the opposition party backed out of the negotiation with the government over the upcoming the 12th of May election. The opposition claimed that the government has not respected them, and have not kept any promises they agreed to. This is expected to lead to more protests and fighting in the streets of Guinea. Part 4, Independence Chapter 4, 2014 Ebola Outbreak. Beginning in July 2014, Guinea suffered the most severe recorded outbreak of Ebola in history, which rapidly spread to neighboring countries Liberia and Sierra Leone.